pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk.
Councilor Committo,
Present.
Councilor Hayden,
Present.
Councilor Janick,
Present.
Councilor deMedeiros,
Present.
Councilor Edwards,
Present.
Councilor Paull,
Present.
Councilor Perry,
Present.
all present.
All right. So first item on the agenda, consent agenda, approval of license renewals non-advertised December 1st, 2024 to November 30th, 2025. Holiday license renewal for American Dream Gas, 400 Main Road. Tobacco license renewal, American Dream Gas, 400 Main Road. Victualling licenses, license renewals for China Sea, 5 Main Road. Pine House Kitchen and Bar, 13 Crandall Road. Plouf Plouf Gastronomy, 2490 Main Road. Subway, 1289 Stafford Road. And acknowledge receipts of reports, Treasurer Surratt, November 2024, budget and revenue reports. Would any counselors like to pull anything from the agenda?
I would like to pull 4B.
All right. Anybody else? All right, do I have a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
Motion made. Second.
All right, motion's made and second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, Counselor deMedeiros.
All right, so I want to bring your attention to page 8. And it's no big deal, but it always becomes an issue during the budget meetings. Look under boards and commissions. We give these people the money they requested, and we're already half through the year, and it's at 0. And we've had to, like, in the middle of budget season, call them and say, you're gonna take this money. So I think we need to ask them if they want it. Some of them last year didn't take it at all, and we made them 0. Do you remember that, John? But I think, you know, in advance, maybe we should call them. It's not a lot of money, but those of us who've done the budget forever, a little bit of money always counts. And also, civic appropriations, there's a 0 for fire community training, which we gave $12.50 to. I don't believe it's probably correct, but I'm not sure. David, is that CPR and all of that? Is that an outside agency?
Correct. I can't speak to it, though.
Yeah, I know you can't. All right, so just if we check if, and I know it's a little thing, but it always becomes a problem at the end where we're like, well, why did they take their money? All right, that's it.
Counselor Committo?
Now that you brought that up, there's a few other things that I noticed. Under the 3420, the hydrant services,
What
right.
page is that?
Page 7, the one right before it. Why do we, is that the water department stuff, or why do we budget money for that? Anybody know?
I can weigh in on that. I believe that's annual maintenance for the hydrants, and I believe that comes towards the end of the budget cycle, but we can ask the administrator to check into that for us.
Isn't that like making sure they're clear,
Like
making
flushing-
sure they don't have
flushing
to
the-
No, flushing is the
Yeah.
water department, but I think it's just to make sure the access is there.
Oh,
To mow
possibly.
the lawn around it. We went, like, to make sure there's no obstructions. I think that's what that is.
I'll double check into
Am I
it.
right?
I don't know.
I think so.
Could be also a painting issue, because I know
could be.
different hydrants have different pressure.
It could
So
be.
it could be something that they look into. I'll look into it. I know most of these boards and
Craig would
commissions.
know that.
I'm sure the council who's the former firefighter would know.
No, I have to say, I remember this coming in question before,
So,
and I
so,
think it's to make sure
so I know the fire
access
department
is there.
removes the snow usually,
Yeah.
because the water departments don't have enough manpower, but all the other maintenance, I would assume, is done by the water authorities.
I would assume as well. So I know a lot of the budget requests for 25, 26 are now coming in from a lot of these individual town departments. So what I can do is I can just remind them that they still have appropriations from this budget cycle and what their plan is moving forward, because obviously that'll be taken under consideration. If they're not spending the money and we're halfway
Yes,
through
we're
the
pulling
budget
it out.
cycle, why would we repeat the same funding again?
Unless,
So,
unless it's something they need at the end of the year.
correct, ma'am.
But as far as the hydrants, I was on the budget committee for 6 years prior to the 4 years here, and those prices have not increased. We've been spending the same amount.
Yeah, I just don't,
I can't tell you exactly what it's
Yeah, I
for,
don't-
but
yeah.
it hasn't changed in 10 years.
Any other counselors? Counselor?
Yeah, just, and then 5530, the landfill. I don't know if somebody can just,
I can probably address that
just a quick
for you.
synopsis on,
There's still work going on down there, even though the landfill is closed, so until the final fence panel goes in, and there will still be some engineering that goes on essentially in perpetuity as it relates to the landfill. So I expect as we get the fencing installed and the landfill is finally capped, that you'll see some of those items fall off, minus the engineering piece.
The bulldozer repair might, because they're not gonna need a bulldozer down there anymore.
Those are both sitting in Public Works rotting.
Right, and so it's not being used, so that 25,000 might be,
that's why I ask. The bulldozer, and then the propane, are we paying to heat a building that nobody uses, or?
Well, I guess the landfill still encompasses the recycle center.
Okay,
So we do have propane over there to heat that building.
okay, thank you.
Any other counselors?
Mr. President, I have one on page 5, right on the top, and I know he's not here tonight to answer it, but I'll bring it up at the next meeting, the overtime on fire department. I'll save that for the next one, but
Dave, see department, salaries.
page 5.
Yeah, but I'm looking at staff salaries. I think they were planning on taking some of that and helping out with overtime if it happens, because we weren't paying staff,
Right,
so we were paying overtime.
okay.
So
but
I think Chris felt that there was gonna be left over there to bounce into
Okay.
that.
Is he fully staffed now?
Just about. The last I asked, right, there was one, the last I asked.
One, so that should be
I
good.
mean, they're not.
Might be
all
two,
there.
somebody else just left
All
this
right.
week.
Okay, all right, so we'll speak to him
It's
next.
much better than it's been.
Yeah, so it should stop the bleeding, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve, I'm sorry, 4B.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? None? All right. Public comments. First on the item is Joanna Ruda, topic Personnel Board.
Does she want to wait?
Until the item on the agenda comes in?
By all means.
All right, thank you.
All right, next up is Amy McNamee, Main Road Housing Destruction. Okay.
That is me. I'm sure you have heard quite a bit about this.
If you wouldn't mind approaching the microphone, just for the record, state your name and address. And your choice, either one.
My name's Amy McNamee. I live at 4094 Main Road. I am here about the house that was destroyed on Main Road, the Lafayette House. And I find that a piece of history that you can't fix, like I know the town can't fix what has happened, but it is appalling. And it's particularly appalling and upsetting, and I'm wondering what the town is going to do when an application was altered by a member of this town who is employed by this town in order to try to cover up the fact that someone missed the fact that this was a historic house and a very important house to the history. I'm looking at the coat of arms here and the pride that we have with regard to the Tiverton's role in the American Revolution and history. And to have something like this happen, but then what's more disturbing to me is the attempted cover-up and an admission. So it's, I'm an attorney, I understand the difference between, we're checking the document. You can't alter documents once they've been filed. And I find it appalling. And then I hope the town is going to do something about this, so this doesn't happen again. I did look up, there are a number of historic sites right now on the block with regard to possible destruction or change. And I'm hoping that the town's going to take this seriously and look at these applications and make sure this doesn't happen again. Well, that's my public comment. I'd like
Thank
to
you.
know if anything is being addressed at this
Thank you.
time.
Just a reminder for the council, this is the time for the public to comment to us. So, next on the agenda is Fred Stachera. Did I say that correctly?
Close enough.
All right.
I'll accept.
Well, by all means, correct me.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Fred Stachura. I live at 4089 Main Road in Tiverton. I'm here also to talk about my complete dismay and disgust about the willful demolition of the historic Lafayette House. I am a preservation professional. I teach historic preservation law. I came to this building the day after the demolition and went into the building official's office and was not that friendly greeted by the staff person at the desk there, and was actually lied to. I asked about if this is the office for issuing demolition permits. I didn't get a straight answer. I had to, remind this person it's a yes or no question. Please answer. When I did get the answer, I was told that there was nothing that the town could do, that the building was not listed in the National Register of Historic Places. I said, I don't believe that's correct. The building is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. It is listed on the Rhode Island Register of Historic Places, and it's also in the town inventory of historic places. So why this town was not notified, why the public was not notified to do something about this, I think is appalling. I then was told that there was some discussion with the building official, with Stu Hardy and one of the heads of the preservation organization here in town. I believe her name is Miss Anderson. And that meeting took place, supposedly. I did confirm with Mr. Hardy that that did take place. However, the person in that office told me that they were given the opportunity, quote unquote, unless you give us some teeth, we can't do anything about the demolition. And that's what I was told. And then on top of being lied to, quite frankly, leaving the office here and then later finding out that there have been a falsification of government documents is really criminal, truly, by definition. And my question to you is, what's the consequence? What's going to happen? Both with respect to the town employee and what are we going to do about our historic resources within this town? I think this should be a wake-up call to the people in Tiverton that this is a watershed event. We've been lucky so far, that's it, because we have no teeth, we have no regulations. We need historic district zoning in different areas in this town. We have designated National Register areas, Tiverton Four Corners being one of them, but that designation is solely honorific. There's no regulatory mechanism to that. So unless we get historic district zoning, and unless we have some kind of design guidelines and other types of ordinances in town to protect our tangible heritage that belongs not only to the property owner, it belongs to the community. This belongs to all of us. I've been driving by that house twice a day for 35 years. That's how long I've lived in this town. And always remarked about that, and being a preservationist, always seeing the potential that, boy, someone could really do something nice with that property. It could be restored. And the condition of that property, although I did not examine the property closely because of being shocked, quite frankly, given the signs that were, the threatening signs that were posted all along that property, the house was not in bad condition. I've been in literally thousands of houses in my career, and that house was by far not the worst one, by far, that I've been in. So I think this should be a wake-up call, and I have those two questions. One is a broader question as far as what the town is going to do with regard to the protection of our historic resources. One of the reasons why people come to this community to live. And the second is, what are the repercussions, what are the consequences of the action that took place in that office behind me? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Philip Zachary, same item.
Good evening. Let me first acknowledge the work that you do. I know it's thankless, and as a resident here, I appreciate the work you do. And I don't mean in any way to come across as an affront to the work that you do. Enough has been said, I think, about this historic building. It's, in my business, optics matter. And the optics of that are very bad. They're bad for the planning people. They're bad for everyone in this building. I'm sorry. It's a bad, bad look. And for someone who lives here and lives here by choice and chose here to relocate, one of the reasons we did is because of the historic nature of this community. And I'm sorry that that happened, but I will echo what's been said here, that there needs to be something needs to be done. It's not over. Let me just segue from that into another thing where I think the optics are bad, and that's on the town administrator position. About a month ago in the Secana Times, it was stated that there was but one applicant for that job. And two people who were very important to me came up to me and said, they've had one applicant for a very important position, why don't you apply? And I said, I'm not really qualified for that job. And they said, well, as a matter of fact, you are. You've been running businesses for the last 35 years and been very successful at it. And I said, well, I guess if they've only got one applicant, why not? And so I applied for the position, never heard a thing back, never heard another thing. Maybe you had so many applicants that you couldn't talk to one of the few people that applied, but no one ever contacted me. And I'm not saying I would have been the best applicant, I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying this. If the prior town administrator took the job on an interim basis 4.5 years ago, came out of retirement, and at that time it was difficult to fill that position, and then occupied that position for 4 years subsequently, and you did another search and still couldn't find anyone, and the best you could do was to give the job to the police chief, I, as a resident in the community, have to wonder where the police chief gets all this extra bandwidth and who's being the police chief. You know, I would have learned the first time around, I think, that maybe this is a difficult position to fill for whatever reason, maybe the requirements, maybe the compensation, whatever it is. And then I would have said, well, we're probably going to have to approach it a different way in 2024 than we did in 2020. Again, these are optics. I don't know how this all worked out, you know, within these walls. I know what I see, and I know what I've experienced personally. And that is that I went to great length to prepare a resume and to apply for that position and was never followed up with until I saw in the paper that the police chief was being named the interim administrator. And he may be the absolute best person in the world, or that may have been your plan all along. I don't know, but the optics are not good. They're just not good. Just like the optics of what happened with that Lafayette house, they're not good. They're just not good. And based on the work that I think you do here, the time that you put in, the time that you put in away from your families, the meager compensation that you get for this, you deserve better than to have people walking around this town believing that there are things going on that shouldn't be. It's not fair to you, it's not fair to the town, and it's not fair to those of us who live here and call this our home pridefully. Pridefully. I'm proud to live in Tiverton, Rhode Island. I never lived in Rhode Island before. We moved here on purpose. We didn't grow up here. We moved here because we wanted to be here. And what I would ask of all the people who are elected officials here, and I did vote for many of you. I see your names. I never met you before, but I did vote for you. I would ask you to be just a little bit more cognizant of the fact that we're watching. We're watching. And we think that Tiverton deserves the best leadership, deserves the best decision-making, deserves the best town administrator. And I think that starts with better communication. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
4094 Main Road.
All right. Next item is Town Council is the Board of Licensing, non-advertised public hearings for license renewals, December 1st, 2024 to November 30th, 2025. Approval of entertainment licenses, Pine House Kitchen and Bar, 13 Crandall Road. Can I do these as a block, both of them, or? No? Okay. All right. Do I have a motion from any member of the council?
Mr. President, motion to approve the non-advertised hearing for the license for Pine House Kitchen and Bar. Was it entertainment? Sorry, I lost track there.
Don't we have to open the public hearing?
No, it's non-advertised. Oh, actually, you're right.
Yeah, it's a
Public hearing.
public.
Motion was second, then you go to.
All right, second.
Then you go to open the public hearing.
All
Then
right.
you're gonna open the public.
Open the public hearing. Would any member of the public like to comment on this license? Any member of the public like to comment? Would any member of the public like to comment? All right, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Nope. All right, all in favor? None opposed? Next item is Petroleum Storage License Renewals, American Dream Gas, 400 Main Road, and Tiverton Sun, 497 Main Road. Do we have a motion?
Mr. President, motion to approve petroleum storage license renewals for American Dream Gas and Tiverton Sun, non-advertised public hearing.
Second.
All right, I'd like to open the public hearing. Any member of the public like to comment on these licenses? Any member of the public? Any member of the public like to comment? All right, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Motion on the floor in a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None? All right, general business. Interim Town Administrator, discussion and possible vote to advertise the open building official position and approve funding to advertise.
Thank you, Mr. President. As part of your package, as most of you know, the building official has resigned as of last week, so I'm requesting permission from the council to advertise for the open building official position. Part of your package should also be a job description. It's been provided to the town clerk, it's been reviewed by the town solicitor, so it should be good to go to ask permission to advertise immediately and allocate the appropriate funding.
Counselor.
Patrick, I thought I saw somewhere what the advertised salary is gonna be.
Yes, ma'am. It's at the top.
Why, oh, okay. All right, you're right. I think we should pay more. And I know this sounds bizarre to you, but I've been here for 12 years, and I think some of the problems is we're not competitive with the other communities. And we don't get a lot of applications for this position. And I'm just wondering if you considered maybe raising that salary or asking us to.
So in looking at the comparable communities with the salary, and just the purpose of putting that number on there, which is the $90,000, that's comparable to what Portsmouth was asking. It's also comparable to what we were paying and what we would have budgeted
Right, it
for.
is.
So there's also a disclaimer on there based on qualified applicants or people that might have other skills, and you're gonna find that's the same with the DPW director, which is coming up next.
Well, I was wondering if we could put a range on it the way that we did with the town administrator.
I think the range is going to be who applies, because ultimately, it's going to be up to you to ratify any any contract, and based on the hopeful number of applicants that we get and the qualified individual that we get to fill this, if they are more qualified, or we're looking at their background, training, and experience, I would highly recommend to the council that we compensate that individual based on their background, which might exceed what we're asking for.
One more question, is that right? But would this discourage someone who looks at this and says, oh, I want to make more than this, I'm not even going to apply because that's what they're willing to pay?
But it says starting salary.
Starting, but that's what I'm saying, though.
And I understand.
Start at 90,000.
And you have a valid concern, ma'am. I think the issue that we're going to run into is there is a statewide shortage of building officials.
Well,
That's what I was gonna say.
Right, but that's one reason to be more competitive.
And if we get someone and the salary is the hangup, then I think that is something that we can absolutely discuss. And to be perfectly frank, I think that the issues that we're going to run into are, along with the salary, is reputation. Is we need to, if we want professionals, we need to seek out professionals, hire professionals, and properly compensate professionals.
Right, and that's what my thought is. Okay. And I'll go the same way with the next one.
Thank you.
Counselor Committo?
I do know somebody who is a building official who is possibly willing to step up on a part-time position. I will discuss it maybe with you after, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to go out to advertise the open building official position and approve funding to advertise.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unopposed. Next item is the interim town administrator, discussion and possible vote to advertise the Director of Public Works position and approve funding to advertise. Mr. Administrator.
This is the same as we did for the building official. This advertisement was updated. A job description was also attached. It was reviewed by the town clerk, reviewed by the town solicitor, and you'll find that that range is within the acceptable range, and the purpose of it is to hopefully bring people that want to work in the town and are interested in working in the town, knowing that that salary ultimately is negotiable based on training and experience. And how we broke out the job description, as you know, the charter changed recently. So in the past, the charter required that our DPW director be an engineer. That is no longer required.
Okay, that's not my
So if we have someone that comes in that's not an engineer, obviously they would not get the same compensation package,
Well,
nor
that's
should
what I'm
they,
saying.
as
An
someone who
engineer.
is.
Because an engineer is gonna wanna be paid, that's been part of our problem too.
And in your package, you'll find that there is qualifications and preferred
I noticed it
qualifications.
was- Yeah, okay.
Any further questions from the council? All right, do I have a motion?
Mr. President, motion to approve the advertisement for the Director of Public Works position and approve the funding to advertise.
Second.
All right, motion's made and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? None opposed? All right, next item is discussion and possible vote to request applications received by the Personnel Board for all town administrator applicants.
Mr. President, before we move on to that, do we have any other department head positions that need to be filled?
The only other position that I'm aware of that's unfilled is the planning, the town planner. And I believe that when that was advertised until filled. So that application or that advertisement process is open until we find a qualified applicant to be the planner.
I understand the personnel board is interviewing for that position. They do have a.
For the planner, for a planner?
Yes.
Not assistant planner? Right.
You have applicants for both, right?
All right, on the matter at hand, I don't know if we want to do discussion first, if that's easier.
Speak on it if That's okay.
Counselor deMedeiros.
I'm the one that brought this up.
And
Yeah,
we do
we'll
have a
do it.
public comment on it. Actually, you know, why don't we do the public comment first, and then we'll, that way.
Yeah.
If that's all
okay.
right.
Come on, Joe.
Hi, Joanna Ruda, 20 Dion Ave. I'm here, of course, as Vice Chair of the Personnel Board, but I'm also here on my own behalf. I'm not speaking for the Personnel Board. But I'm speaking to this issue because we've had this situation come up several years ago, 20 to be exact, and we had this kind of a situation come up, whereas the Personnel Board, when I was sitting there on the council, the Personnel Board was required or asked or requested to supply the council with the remaining resumes that didn't get forwarded for consideration for a particular position. At the time, I knew that it took a decision by the town solicitor at the time in 2003 came back with a decision that, of course, anyone who was, the resumes were reviewed but not put forward for the actual interviews would have to remain confidential. Only those resumes that get put forward to the town administrator for subsequent interviews now become a matter of public access. So I understand that this was another request that came up. Second of all, that was, and Dave Perry, you were on the council, you were on the personnel board when all of that took place. And the debate was very lively then, and it was also reviewed by the second town solicitor, coming back with the same decision that anybody who was not put forward would remain confidential. Their information would remain confidential because they didn't meet the minimum qualifications at the time, and that was your argument then. That was the argument 2 years before that. And we're here again discussing the same things, and it's the confidentiality between the personnel board, which is the intermediary to you, that all those resumes that don't get put forward remain confidential, because those people are out looking for jobs, and only those people who would have gotten put forward for any position would then become a matter of for your perusal, once the town administrator now comes back to you. And it was decided back then that that was the case, that those resumes remained confidential. Until now, we have not heard that any issue has come up, that any of this, and I'm sure if an issue did come up, that the personnel board would be, there's a process, and I think the process would have to work itself out, and then it would then come to you as to what the process would be. Up until now, we have not had any kind of a process that would release those exempt records for public access. So I just wanted to make a point that back then, it was decided then that they must remain in confidentiality. It was the problem then, it was the situation then, it's the same situation now. Matter of fact, I was one of the council members who thought that, the personnel board runs the intermediary between the candidate and you, or an applicant and you, and we just have to be very careful to release those kinds of very confidential information on any applicant, really. So, what the personnel board's inception was the matter of, the appearance of impropriety, that would anybody be hired because they know you, or they know you, or they know you? That's not the case. We review all the resumes that come in. We look at all the minimum requirements. If in fact the people do meet the minimum requirements, we pass on more than 3. At the time, it used to just be 3. Now we push, we'll put forward as many as meets the absolute minimum requirements. So, at one point in 2020, it was even a ballot question that the town personnel board even be, could have even been removed if the townspeople would have voted that way. So it's just that we've already been through this. It was decided then. 3 lawyers had reviewed that situation, and 3 lawyers came to the same conclusion then, that it should remain private. It is confidential information. It was that way then, and I feel it's the same way now. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak, please.
Counselor deMedeiros.
Joanne, I
All right, so
have a
I do want
question for you.
Yeah, but I want to.
Well, Counselor deMedeiros, then we'll come back to you.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so this all started because of me. And I do know the opinion, Joanne, I have it here, that had to do with department heads. And that was if we as a council, the town administrator comes to us and says, this is the person we want, and we say, well, wasn't there someone better, can we see the applications? In that way, we cannot, because we ratify that contract only. The town administrator is who hires that. As far as the town administrator, I've hired 3. The last one we hired, and Trish Hilton was vice president of the council at the time, and she agrees with me. We were present for all the opening of the applications. We read them all. We didn't participate, we just listened. You picked like 3 you wanted to interview, we were there for the interview. The difference between a department head and a town administrator is we are the hiring authority. We hire that person. And as the hiring authority, we should have access to the applications. My problem with this, sir, is there was 6 applications. 6 people were interviewed, 6 people applied. Now, I trust the personnel board, I work with them a lot, I'm their liaison. I trust that they looked at this, and they didn't feel that these people were, their resumes met the opportunity to interview. They didn't have the proper. Now, I think the optics of this looks horrible, and that's okay. But if I have to have somebody here say to me, you hired the police chief, and I gotta tell you, I am a huge fan of the police chief and his ability to run this town, and this has nothing to do with him. It has to do with procedure and optics. If someone comes in front of me and says, why did you only interview 1 person? And I say, because the other 5 didn't meet the criteria, I don't know that. I trust they don't because I trust them, but I would feel a lot more confident looking at them and saying, yes, you're right. Or if the majority of us, and it has to be the majority, say, this application looks pretty good, why don't we just interview this one also? And 4 of us say yes, then we interview them. I've been through this process with the town administrator department heads, Joanne's absolutely right, with administrators, and I've been privy to look at everything. And I'm really quite not sure why there's such hesitation to show us it. We will probably agree. I will tell you, I've been at their meetings. I know what they do. But I feel to justify, and this is the most important job that this council has, is to hire the person who's gonna run this town. That's the person that makes the decisions for us, recommends things to us, recommends hiring to us. This is the most important responsibility we have. And I want to be absolutely sure the right decision was made, and I want to be able to justify it. I want to be able to say, yes, 6 people applied, I agree with the personnel board, only 1 should have it. But I have to tell you, past precedents, I have been present at everything. Joanne wasn't on the personnel board during, Jan was the one that we were right there for everyone. Chris, we had a few applications, and they brought forward a couple of people, and we did interview them. This, to me, I've never had this happen, where 6 applications, you only pick 1 to interview, and I have to justify why I'm hiring that 1 without looking at the rest of the resume. Now, we did get an opinion from the town solicitor, and the opinion does read that he feels, I'll let him speak, that he feels we can look at these applications, and I thought, fine, we get to look at them. And I'm still hitting resistance that I can't look at the other applications. And I'm not saying that Patrick's not the best person for the job, or that the personnel board did not do their job. I'm just saying my 12 years here, I've never run into this roadblock, and I'm not quite sure why I'm running into it now.
Counselor Perry.
It's federal and state law.
No, well, Mike will talk about it.
Counselor Perry?
Yes. First of all, I have one question. Joanne, the applicants that didn't get interviewed, do they get letters stating why they didn't get an interview?
No, because I'm not sure, I'd have to check with Jim, but we would not have, I don't think so, no.
No? Okay. Because I thought
But that would be something I will discuss,
because I thought that's something that we used to do before.
unless Jim does.
I thought that's something we did before. Okay.
I think we do that.
How's that?
No, I'm not
Sorry.
done yet. Being on the personnel board for 12 years prior, I have full confidence in the personnel board and what they do. I looked at what Mr. Marcello sent out, and in one of his comments here, he also put past practice. And past practice goes a long way. And it's in this, if you go to page 2, let's see if I can find it here.
Mr. President, can we discuss this if it's
Yes,
confidential?
sir. Yeah, it's a matter of public record at this point.
Thank you. I'm just curious, trying to learn.
1, 2, 3, 4th. In the current town administrator's review process, the appointing authority is the town council, and the charter gives no directive to the personnel board to make such recommendations to the town council, even though it appears that it has been the past practice of the board to interview and make the recommendations to that body on the prior occasions. Past practice. So, again, I have full confidence in what they do. They made a decision. I don't think anyone has complained about the decision that they've made. I haven't heard from any of the other candidates that were not interviewed about the process that went on, except for tonight. I mean, this gentleman came up tonight and said, he spoke about, he thought he was qualified, but apparently, according to what the personnel board looked at the applications, apparently he wasn't. I'm not, but I have full confidence in the planning board's decision.
Counselor Committo?
Yeah, so I also have confidence in the personnel board. The one issue I do have, though, is this isn't the first time candidates have not been notified about not moving on in the process. My understanding is, prior to me being on the council, and when we were looking for a planner, people were interviewed and then never notified about not moving on in the process. I think that's pretty unprofessional. I think it needs to be addressed, and whoever is in charge of notifying, whether it's the personnel board, I know in this case, the administrator is the position we're looking for. Maybe the town clerk could help us out with that, but somebody needs to be notified that they're not moving on. And I think that's where we get ourselves into a jam, where, like this gentleman's saying, the optics of things. But other than that, that can't happen. We at least have to notify people applying. Thank you.
Counselor Janick.
Absolutely no disrespect to our police chief, who's been doing a great job. Mr. Zachary, you could not have said it better. I truly believe everything that you said. It's my feelings also. We need to make a decision, and the planning board does their job very well, but we need the personnel. We need to make a decision, and I need to know that we have actually looked at all of the applicants. You're the first one whose name or face has even come before me. I don't know what the other people's qualifications are. I don't know what yours are. And I feel that we just need to get the process right, and we need to, it's an important position. This is the leader of our town, and we need to have the right person. And we may come out to the end, and it may still be our interim person, but I think that we need to be able to have access to all of the information so that we can make an informed decision, because right now, we're being given one applicant. For all other positions in the past, there's been multiple, 2 or 3 applicants. The council interviews all of them and then comes to a decision. Because sometimes it's not just even what's on paper, but when you meet with people. I do a lot of interviewing in my job, and sometimes what's on paper is not really the best fit. Sometimes you really need to meet the person and get a feel for them and get a feel for what they can bring to the table. So I just think that we're not doing the best service to our town's taxpayers by not giving them other options. No disrespect, Chief.
So,
But I just feel that we need to make sure at the end of the day that we've made the right choice.
so anybody else like to speak on this before I talk? No? Okay.
Mr. President, I would just echo Councilor Committo. It's been said, yes, the optics are not that great. I sat in on my first personnel board interview with the administrator candidate, and the questions that were asked, I was actually surprised. They were very clean cut, professional. I don't want to undermine them in this process. I think they did a fantastic job. But I do agree that letters, optics, do you guys have a secretary or no?
Yeah, they do.
So what you were describing earlier was the fact that at that point in time, which was not that long ago, those applicants that were put forward who should have had interviews by the town administrator at the time were never contacted. No interviews were contacted, nor were anyone told that their application was, so that would have been on that, on the administrator at the time, to connect with people, to let them know that their applications were in fact coming to the next step. And we tell them at the interviews, like as you heard, the next step would be now, once we make our deliberation, we come and we reconcile everything. I interviewed people at my job too in Boston, and we tell them then that what the next step will be and who will be contacting them. And at that point in time, no one was contacted for any of those positions. That was the problem then.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No,
Counselor Paull?
I have utmost confidence in the process and the current candidate. I think the process was great through the personnel board.
Okay, so, unless you want to say anything, Counselor Hayden, no? All right, so I appreciate the solicitor putting together his opinion, and the solicitor's opinion is essentially that the charter is gray when it comes to the administrator position. We are the appointing authority, that's correct. Past practice has been that these candidates have gone through the personnel board, and I don't disagree that the charter is gray and that we should probably have our Charter Review Commission look at that process and solidify it. However, following the request from Councilor deMedeiros, I reached out to the town's labor attorney, who raised some very serious concerns as it relates to the process and us seeing all the applications. The point of the personnel board is to keep the town administrator in some hiring positions, and in this case, the town council, at arm's length from the process. There's potential issues with equal opportunity employment hires. There's potential issues when it comes to, hiring somebody of a diverse background. The personnel board, in all essence, acts as our screening tool for these applicants. Now, I too, like Councilor deMedeiros, have been through a couple of these hires before. From my recollection, it was the candidates that were elevated from the personnel board that ultimately came to the town council to
John,
review.
you were invited to go to that envelope, and you weren't there.
With all due respect, whether or not somebody's present at the personnel board meeting shouldn't dictate whether they can see all the applicants. So, again, some of us have jobs, right? I know Councilor Hayden works full-time, so, but the point being is this, is that we've leveraged the personnel board in some sticky situations in the past where if the town were to get involved in opening those applicants, there's potential liability there. So me, from my perspective, I agree with the solicitor in his opinion, but I also agree that there's potential hiring issues if we were to now all of a sudden unseal these applicants, the ones that were not moved forward, that didn't go through the interview process. So if there's a motion made to request this, I will be voting no.
John, did Tim give you his opinion in writing?
He did not.
Because that's not what I understood. So I would like to see that in writing. But Mike, would you like to, because it's not a state law, first of all, but see, this is very different than a department head gang. This is the town administrator. We are the person who's going to hire this person. And we have to have confidence that this process was done correctly, which I do, but we see so much confidential information, so much more than a resume. We are privy to so much, and we take an oath not to let it out, and we don't. And the personnel board is our advisory committee per charter. So to say that we can't have confidential information is ridiculous, because we know that that's not, we have so much of that. But I would like Mike to give an opinion, if that's okay with everyone.
Thank you.
By all means, Mr. Solicitor.
I did, at the request of the Personnel Board, I did render a written opinion on December 18th, 2024. You all have it. It will be public record as of tomorrow. Ms. Aruta's opinions that she references in the 20s and 13 years ago, those had to do with appointments of the town, appointments directly of department heads by town administrators. So that was the request for the council to see the resumes of people who applied for department head positions, which is the sole appointing of the town administrator. And the council, and I agree with both of those opinions that were written, that the council has no role whatsoever in looking at those resumes. So, but the difference is that you are the appointing authority under the charter. My opinion is based upon the charter language, that because you are the appointing authority, you certainly have the right to review any and all resumes you want to that are submitted either through the personnel board or directly to you. I understand that's the process that was done in the past, that resumes were submitted to the personnel board, and they review them and they forward them to you, but that's discretionary on your part. You don't have to use that process. The charter does not require you to use that process whatsoever. As far as confidentiality, the opinions, again, there's a difference between confidentiality of the public. There was absolutely nothing in state law that would require us, the public, to have the public review these. It's a difference. You are not the members of the public. You are elected officials. And if someone were to ask for the non-disclosed resumes under an app request, they would be denied because non-successful applicants are not reviewed. Only successful applicants are reviewed. In this case, however, you are the council, you're the appointing authority. I believe you have the legal authority to look at the resumes if you want to, but the choice is totally yours. I stand by the opinion that I give based upon the charter language. I did have a conversation with Mr. Cavassa about some of his concerns, and as I mentioned in my memo, they can be addressed in the way that they're reviewed, but it's up to the council how you want to proceed.
John, I also have a question. So because you said we can see it, can I be told I can't just from a vote of a majority of the town council? Like it's my right to see it, per your opinion. How can the council tell me I can't when the legal opinion says I can? That's what I'm asking. I mean, it would be very difficult.
Mr. Solicitor?
It's an interesting question. The council has this before there is as a majority, whether you want to, how they want to do it. If the majority of the council decides that they're not going to look at the resumes, then the majority of the council is not going to look at the resumes, and you would have, I guess, a private right of action against the council to see them as yourself. But in this case, the majority would rule. That's how.
But that's not, so that could be with anything then. You could tell us that we can't do something that's against the law, and if the majority says, well, we're going to do it anyway, then that doesn't make any sense to me.
All the lawyer can do
That
is,
doesn't make any sense.
you're my client, and I've given you my opinion. You're free to ignore the opinion if you disagree with it or don't like it.
But suppose some of us don't want to ignore the opinion and want to see the resumes.
I
have seen all the resumes in the past. This is.
Mr. President, I have the charter in front of me, and Section 107 Personnel Board, it's silent on Town Administrator, silent.
Correct.
Right.
Can I make a comment, Mr. President, or are we
Councilor
past
Hayden.
it? Okay. So just because we did something a certain way in the past does not mean we have to do it that way in the future. You know, I've done discovering and explorations in a lot of businesses, and a lot of times people just say, oh, because we always did it that way. But why, right? So based upon the opinion that the town solicitor submitted, I do believe we all should have access to the resumes, and whether, based upon the opinion, we keep them in Joan's office in a file, and as it states, we can't take photos, we can't take copies, but we all should have the right to see those applications. I do have a lot of trust in the personnel board as well, even though I'm new and getting into this, but, you know, trust but verify, and, you know, they're here to serve the town, so that we can have the town feel peace of mind that we made the right decision for the absolute best candidate that was there. Let's just be transparent, just like we asked the school to do with their numbers and their things, right? Let's just be transparent, throw it all out there, let the counselors see them, and that would be my personal opinion.
We don't even have to have the names. We could label them number 1, 2,
Correct.
3, 4, 5, 6, and say we want to interview that one, and we don't have to know the names until they come to us.
And potentially,
This has happened
an applicant might actually say that they're okay with it. And one of the applicants might waive their right. They might say, you know what, go ahead, make it public record, I'm okay with it.
Oh, and some
I don't know, I was not an applicant, but some of the applicants might be okay with that.
somebody
So, if we have their permission, then why can't we make it public?
You have to remember just that these people applied for a public job, right? So I'm not going to get into whether you should see them or not. I already gave my opinion that you have a right to see them if you want, but there's an expectation that someone's going to see these. And certainly the appointing authority would have a right to see them if they wanted to see, so.
Sure, thank you for that comment.
All right, I feel like we're kind of going around in circles. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to unseal the records only to Joan, for only council members to view, not available to the public, if that is the correct verbiage on that, Mr. Solicitor?
Yes, and would they also, would it be blind as well? In other words, the names be redacted, the names of the applicants?
I'm all about that, yeah, unless
up to you.
unless the candidate says otherwise, then that's fine by me.
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I
now-
just make a comment? To the extent that this, you need to do this individually, we can't have a group of 3 or 4 go individually look at these resumes, and I'm sure the council president through Joan will make up time slots to do so. To the extent that after reviewing these resumes or the applications, if individuals want to then interview or come, bring it back to the council, say, I looked at candidate number 2, I think he's a good candidate, he or she is a good candidate. That has to be brought back before the council for you guys to decide as a body.
Yep.
And at that point, if you're going to discuss the resumes that were reviewed, whether it's, 1 through 6 or how many it was, those individuals will get notified that you are actually be doing that, and they have a right to request that that be done in public as well. So I'm just letting you know the process in case you go down that route.
Mr. Solicitor,
Appreciate
what's the
it.
time frame on this?
It's up to you.
We have business to move forward with this town, and
Well, we
I
have an
don't want
interim
to.
administrator.
Correct, and I don't want to drag the process on, and I don't want to disrespect other candidates that may have applied, but there's got to be a time limit here as well.
I mean, you're the authority.
We still have to interview the candidate publicly as it
When,
is.
when you say time limit, do you mean like how long they're available to be seen for, or like when they're
Do a week,
available
David.
to be accessed, like starting tomorrow, or what do you mean by
I'll go look tomorrow, or whatever.
Yeah,
to
I'll
30
speed the
days,
process
15
up.
to 2 weeks?
That's up to you guys.
Yeah.
There's nothing legal about the time frame. It's just you need to decide when they're going to be available for you to review and how long it's
Why
going
don't
to
we
take.
say a week, and then at the next council meeting, the end of, it would have to be the end of January. Or we could put it on, what do you think, John?
I would say by January 27th.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we need
Before
to
then.
Yes,
move forward
and
with
then
an
we can,
administrator
yeah.
sooner than later.
January 27th.
Yes.
The last meeting.
Last meeting, yes.
Yeah, not next week,
We're
in 3
about to
weeks.
go into a contentious budget season, we've got a lot of business we got to handle.
Correct. So, and just so we're clear, so all the personal information will be redacted, names will be redacted. They'll be put into a randomized order, 1 through 6 or A through whatever.
I assume that's part of the motion
Yeah.
that's the procedure that.
That sounds
That
fine
was
by
your
me.
intent.
Would you like
Love
me
it.
to revise the motion, or do you want to just add that in?
I think that's
Yeah,
the
we
intent.
did that.
All right, with that, I'd like to make a motion to go into closed executive session, Interim Town Administrator, Rhode Island General Law 42465A5, discussion and possible vote on the disposition of publicly held property in the Tiverton Industrial Park. Do I have a second?
So
Second.
moved.
Discussion. I would like to know if the applicant would mind if we did this in public session. I think this matter has already been very much exposed on Facebook. It's been discussed several times. I just feel very I think that we've been talking about transparency and what's going on behind closed doors. I think it would be best for the whole community and for all of us if it was right there in the open, so it's not a he said, she said kind of thing. And, I mean, this has been, come on, guys, we've been talking about this subject for 4 months on every social media there is, and it's been even politicized. I see no reason why we shouldn't do this in public.
Mr. Solicitor,
But I'm asking if they mind.
The decision whether to go into closed or executive session is up to the council. That's why you vote on it.
correct.
Yeah, so that's,
Are you opposed?
We have a motion and a second to go into closed executive session. All that's left is a roll call here. So, Counselor Committo?
Say it again.
Roll call, yes or no, to go into closed executive session? You gotta say it.
yes,
Say.
you got to roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
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 All right, we're
Joan?
now in closed executive session.
Joan, for the record, I would like it to be documented, I will not be present at this executive session, and I will not go into an executive session with Mr. Long. I feel that it all needs to be public, so the whole community gets exactly what's going on.
Joan, I would second that for me. I will not be going into executive.